Welcome back to the WUB Wake Up Billy's Morning Vibes. It's Wednesday morning, 30th of May, 2026. We done the preliminaries, so now we can get down to the business of conversation. And I don't know about you, but I can't have no conversation with myself. Maybe you got people who know to do that. I can't. It's not a skill I have. For me, a conversation means more than one, and that means somebody better start calling and start calling quick. All right, quickly. Krim, good morning.
Morning, Morris. Morning, Julie. A few things I want to talk about this morning, but first off, condolences to Aaron Hume's family. Like everybody else, just shocked to hear of the transition and make a reflect if Aaron knew how much we can contribute to Belizeans as a media worker, if you know that. We always got, most of the time, good things to say about people after the transition. And I have an issue with it because other people, they have high moments and low moments, and I wish we had just talked about people in their fullness. But I often wonder if people know before the transition that they mattered or the work that they did matter. So that was just something that stay with me. From listening to Aaron's mom, for me, I said, get this by him up for sure. And just articulated herself well, recognized the brilliance of child and youth, and nurture it. I mean, working class family. And Aaron was really different. I know for me, I was shocked, like seriously shocked. When I forgot until I saw the news story here on XTV with the photos of Aaron as a guest on the Sunday Review. I had totally forgotten that he had done a little bit of that. He had kind of been on the show. Yeah, when I changed Sunday Review to a news review show in 2012, I made interview media workers because oftentimes students know who them people, how they become media workers. Yeah. And again, to Zing Fence credit, we know for taking everybody. Whether you have journalism experience, whether you get deported, we will take your youth. So you cut your teeth in the media as Zing Fence, and then you go to other places and build as a media worker. But condolences to his family. And
I want to say before you shift, because obviously I am duty bound to share condolences with the family, and I have no problems with the tradition of speaking words when someone is passed. It's a part of the celebration of that person's journey. And especially, it's more a respect, and it's what we can offer to those who are feeling the greatest burden. Whatever couple grams of ease or words, which it's not it's really, at least I don't know about anybody else. When I speak on people who have transitioned, it's never words of exaggeration or words that come superficially. It's what I feel and what I think of a person, and if I can't speak those honestly, then I don't say anything. If people have passed, I think by not saying anything, it's best. Obviously, what we need to do more of is we need to be more deliberate, intentional as to how we tell people that we value them while they're here and what we think of them now. That should be a practice as well. We should develop that, and we should make that a tradition. With that said, my thoughts on Aaron Aaron was here with us. Obviously, he's done work for many media places. He started out with a Mandela. He's done, as the news story, he's been with Creme Radio, XTV. And one of the things that I wanted to speak on is the way that we think of the way how we value people. And Aaron was, anybody who engaged with him know that Aaron was very geeky, very nerdy, right? He's not somebody who is loud, is not aggressive, he's not bragging, In fact, he's just a very quiet, but he's big. But when he would speak, which very often Aaron speaks, when he speaks, he's going to speak proper English. Aaron was not, somebody where you would have said he was proper, right? And I've thought about it that, being how he is the kind of person where coming up in a school you're going to be bullied. That's what happens. To be a bookhead, to be geeky, to be nerdy, sometimes you'd be talking on a certain matter, and Aaron would jump in and he would have a lot of thoughts about kind of similar, not as intense as our brother JC, who has deep knowledge on so many different things, right? But Aaron similarly had that kind of bookworm vibe about him when he speaks on topics. And so obviously finding journalism was a kind of a great fit for him, for his personality and how he was. But I just think about when we cultural, we are more inclined to push up individuals who are not of that flavor, people who are sometimes very aggressive, especially males, and especially black males, like your children coming up, sorry. If a child shows aggression, we rate it. Somebody they beat to want to read too much books, we don't know. We start name calling. That we part Aaron's passing me yesterday evening, sister, like to say that we could go with different vibes. We have to appreciate that this is a mere brother of excellence, right? And that there is that the way how we appreciate people and rate people, we have to really analyze it and confront it and say, well, okay, why are we that way? Because we got different flavor of human beings, different vibes, different energy, different RPMs. And in fact, we have to understand that we have to value everybody. We value everybody. But we also have to value, especially in 2026, people who believe in a knowledge acquisition. They are very important. Even if they're kind of quirky, even if they have different personalities and how we rest and how we stand. You know, it's like Aaron me there and spend my month of time here, but me and Aaron never connect. You know, it's like it's a young brother, respect him. I know he does the work, but you know, I would generally say the people I connect with the roughneck, right? Like I want to connect to roughneck people, quote unquote. But you're looking back and say, okay, but why you can't connect to somebody with a roughneck, right? Where they going in your head? So then are the reflections I have, which I think are proper when you look at an individual and you know, listen, the media family has lost an outstanding member, a professional member, a high quality member. The community has lost a high quality human being, and an important story, just like any other story of navigating, you know, all the isms and schisms we have for navigating our community. And I will end with this, that to anybody right now where they look down upon a nerdy, geeky youth and they feel a lot of peer pressure for show a different style, rest, they're not popular in class, they're not, you know, they get bullied and all of that. Right now the world is run by nerds and geeks. The most powerful, influential people on planet Earth, whether we like it or not, are those people. And in fact, if we want to think about who bad and who rough, some of the most lethal people on planet Earth right now are geeky, nerdish people. So the whole concept of who rough or who not rough, we got a handful of nerdish, geekish people right now where they play around with one of the most powerful invention in the history of mankind. Dangerous. And I support it and I endorse it. But then are the people, a handful of them, that they have the power, they have the power right now, invented and dealing with it, and they make decisions, but all the way. The nerds and geeks were they behind some of the most lethal weapons mankind has ever known. The nerds and geeks when they put together to create the nuclear bomb. Like the concepts that we have of who the rough, who deadly, who bad, you know, who the bad man. We have to really think it through. Of course, Brother Aaron was none of those things. He was just somebody who obviously, I don't know his story that well, but based on my conversations with him, he must have read a lot, must have been a bookhead. And that's cool too. In fact, that is extremely important. And in memory of Brother Aaron, to all the bookheads right now where they try to find themselves, don't feel the need to be validated by popular consensus. Like, be you. Be you. And I say these words in tribute to our colleague, who I feel like, you know, he walked that walk for good or bad. He had to confront that. I'm sure through his life he had to deal with that, especially as a youngster. I just know that, you know, like, Aaron different. That's just it, and that's cool and special, really. And boy, you know, it's like I'm really happy Hugh O'Brien shared that story, which I had never spoken to Aaron about it, and we don't know much about it, but the story about how he felt in the aftermath of the interview that ended up being leaked, that he did with Doug Singh, which was at the time an explosive disclosure an explosive leak. It's one of the most dramatic leaks in media over the last 15 years. And for him, in this present era where the most important thing really is not about how you get it done, but if you could have a viral moment like, wow, let's do it. That's the era that we live in. It's the era where, you know, we are driven by the algorithm, we're driven by trying to create hype, driven by trying to get likes, get views. We're living in the age of attention is God. He did not celebrate that moment. He was pained by it. Sharing that story gives us a sense of the character of the brother, because that is special. To not relish that moment in the industry that we are in the time that we are in, to anguish over the fact that this is not what you wanted because you didn't secure that the authorization to record that interview, to be more concerned about that than to get the glory of being the person who got that interview. At the time, this was explosive and sensational. Thank you for sharing, Brother Hugh. I think it is important. And rest in peace, Aaron. I think it's important to say that. Respect is due.
Big respect was, again, I never met, I think about it from the perspective we think about it, especially for Buked, from black youth, and then he grew up to be big in a body. How he must feel like a unicorn growing up, especially coming from a working class family. And I really appreciate that perspective from you as a brother. And indeed, when it shows Aaron's character that when I heard him tell the story, I think one other thing was saying me kind of feel bad is that nobody asked him how he felt. Like that just, if we have to do better as people, like truly, we have to do better as people to recognize people for their values, for their worth, regardless of how they package the families where they're born into, what they look like physically. Genuinely, we really have to do better. So big respect to the life Aaron Humes lived and to the impact he has, and where he continued for teaching after he transitioned with this reasoning this morning. And secondly, today that also the 101st our stronger brother Malcolm X, and even though we said that and be 101 years. And yesterday I gone at the funeral of Mrs. Alma Dakers, who was in her 100th season, turned 99 in March. And I sit down and think, I'm like, born 1927. 100 years before that, I'm 1827. Like, people think 100 years is a long time, but really it isn't. When we think about who we life, how beliefs came to be, the experiences we have. And so I just want to ask you quickly, Carl, we got like 15 minutes. What Brother Malcolm still mean to you 101 years later, Brother Moon?
What's that?
What Brother Malcolm mean to you? To show you that even after people transition, they still impact with lives.
Yeah. I did a point with find it one kind of energy with me with part like I try understand the human being behind one legend, right? So maybe that's some fine tuning where could take place, right? So it's not the same way I experienced reading the autobiography. I remember in my mid-late teens, we were able to secure a bunch of cassette tapes with his speeches. And so make we be real about it, like you don't know Malcolm X until you have listened to his speeches. You know, reading the book, you know, the story is a important one for any black person, wherever you are, to have read. So if you've not read it, you need to read it. So it's must read. But to kind of feel the soul of the man, you have to hear him speak. And then you have to understand the context in which he was, the time that he was speaking in, right? To speak that way in the 60s, you're talking here about a different level. But in 2026, I have deep, and I know that it's a difficult reality that we have to process the falling out between essentially son and father, because that's the relationship that Elijah Muhammad had with Malcolm X. It's really, that breakup is the breakup of a father and son. And so every time I process anything around Malcolm X in 2026, I have to process the fact that his coming up and his projecting, even though he was not limited by it, but ultimately he emerged because of it, is the infrastructure and the nurturing that was engineered by Elijah Muhammad. You cannot and you should not because of the falling out, be completely dismissive of that and not have maximum respect. Even you can have your views of the falling out and what happened afterward, and it's painful. It's a painful energy. It's a painful historical moment, and the consequences afterwards. It's a deep. It's like you wish that you could have turned back. One of those things. Just say, can we not make this become like just confrontation and become what it ultimately became? But we still have to recognize, I feel, because I think that there's been a lot of throwing away of Elijah Muhammad, and I don't feel that should be done. When we think of Malcolm X and what he became, you have to have recognition and respect for the value of the infrastructure that was available for him at that moment of his lowest point, that led to him ascending and becoming what he has become, to oppress people all over the world. So that's what I think about it. It's hard not at this moment. Like I can't think about the greatness of Malcolm, unfortunately, without having to process the way this most important relationship and important movement in time was, it wasn't, they tried to paint the picture that it was all internal. But you and I know, sister, that the external forces are always present to try to maximize our cracks, to make them become volcanic explosions. and so we can now look back and we know how the forces of the oppressor worked, manipulated. We now have a better understanding of all that was being done. But they could not have seen it then. They would not have known the extent to which there were forces that were operating to dismantle them and to break them up, and then to create what eventually this great tragedy for us. But you asked me, sister, so those are the things that I think about, no?
Again, points of view, some of them I definitely may have to think about, but I agree. If we pay attention to individual lives, as we live and grow with perspective or understanding, processing people and life change. So I appreciate deeply the process you carried through just now. And I don't one of them people because I am very much and I quite comfortable for being in my feelings when it comes to the Nation of Islam. I quite comfortable for have feelings about them based on how this gone down. But what it reminds me of just now is I never looked at it as a father and son relationship, which could be a correct description of the relationship between Elijah Muhammad and Brother Malcolm X. And so, not dash out the baby with the bath water because of the impact what a brother had for our next black man. And you can't tell you can't appreciate the fullness of Brother Malcolm without that. And even though I'm aware of it, I don't really give it a lot of energy because I'm feeling primarily about what the issue we still have today. Where similarly to after somebody transitions, people get up there to see that funeral and most of the time just talk about the goodness of it and not talk about the fullness of it. Similarly, let's say in our organizations, black organizations in particular, people glorify the leaders, whether they're women or men, and not talk about their humanity and their flaws, because that's the way people go. And like everybody else I road know the dirtiness of the person, so they talk about it anyways, whether they talk about it publicly or not. But I know, like I really take it personal when you have leaders, when I real with themselves, I know, you know what, this is one of my weaknesses. Like I just have to, and then the followers too, when I'm willing to admit, listen, people got flaws. Especially if they transition and they never publicly recognize, listen, I make some bad choices, I did some mistakes. I don't rate that much. I just got difficult, and then I got difficulty with people in organizations where and I never put people on blast, but the wider community don't know the struggles of somebody in a leadership per se, especially if that person is willing to take counsel from others. So listen, man, you have to, this is all right. So I really,
one of the stories where again, these are such important lessons where you can't just lot of important lessons there in the details where they are for the, like I said, they are for the primary radar, like they are for the main camera. So one of the stories that I've read about, and I don't want to be inaccurate, so I won't go deep into the details because I didn't really refresh the story. But as you know, Brother Malcolm and Brother Martin Luther King Jr. had a very it was a, I guess it would be accurate to call it an antagonistic relationship. Malcolm was very critical of the civil rights leaders, very critical of Martin Luther King's non-violence approach, and at various levels of his emergence, he had it turn up full flame in his. He kind of moved off that intensity, but he was still very there. The story I get was that at a very critical moment, it might have been when Martin Luther was in prison, or it might have been when they were going to have a really big, a huge moment that Malcolm actually wanted to link Martin Luther and wanted to, and had conversations about wanting if he was needed, and that to give that moment of solidarity, despite everything, despite, yeah, I want to call you out, I not there with this, I not there with that, I think you're wrong, blah blah blah. But at a moment when, like, you would have said Martin had the greatest tension, or had a moment of great tension, and I'm saying it that way because I can't recall all the details of it, but I'd kind of seen a whole thing that went into that moment, and you can probably try to look up it. I find in that such a instructive, inspiring energy. You see, like, because it reminds us that even though that they are now on our T-shirts, they are now icons and almost they are revered and whatnot, that we have to always remind ourselves these were human beings and they were young. They were in their 30s, you know. These people were in their 30s, right? Be honest, sister. Yeah, like in my 30s, I'm gonna tell you, I never have one lot of the say understanding why I have know that I 55, and they're in their 30s, they're under pressure, things intense, both internally, externally, personally, and everything would go on, and they both would be killed. They made the ultimate sacrifice. And in that moment, even when to most and everybody, they were like enemies, there was still an understanding of, well, we don't agree, but I don't want to hurt you. That, for me, stick with me deep, right? For real.
Again, excellent point, because like I said earlier, as you grow and evolve, your position changed, your understanding changed, and the narrative that they were so opposing to each other, and again, I'm glad you make the point, they were both young people, and the amount of pressure and the time they were living in, the climate, and not being aware to great detail the forces against them, but they were both clear on the liberation of African people, or African descendants. And they still carry themselves with, even when they disagree, they don't like how we behave now. There was a dignity about them as black men that you don't say for the most part in 2026. There was a dignity about them. It could have been their rootedness in their faith that make them carry themselves differently. It could have been that some black men may carry themselves at that time. But definitely, one of the things I want to say before I finish with Brother Malcolm, besides the fact that they're oftentimes portrayed as people who were, opposed to each other in philosophy, as they grow and develop, you learn that they had more in common than we might know. And finally, oftentimes when you hear them talk about Malcolm X, you oftentimes hear about the women who nurtured him deeply, like his mother, the Queen Mother Audrey Moore. His mother was Louise Little, Queen Mother Audley Moore, Vicky Garvin. I just want to say the name of the Japanese American activist Yuri Kochiyama. Oftentimes when you hear Brother Malcolm, you hear a relationship with women. His wife, Sister Betty Shabazz. You don't hear about how much these women meant to him and their nurturing of him, their reasoning with him, making him sharp. And so on his 101st or strong, I'm just want to make sure, we remember Brother Malcolm and the relevance of him still in 2026, and there are terrorists like me and X, so with people in that. Right. I have to call back because I know that's 7:30, but I have to reason. Tomorrow the Labor Department, they have one Labor session at IT Vet from I think that's from 9 to 11:30. Of course, I push back for why on a tip they have their reasoning during working hours.
So what are the reason about tomorrow? Is there a specific topic? What are the agenda?
Then okay, so 2 weeks ago they had a reasoning about the revising the labor law that hasn't been revised since 1960. The session where I got in, only 2 people come face to face and 2 from the online, which I mean, I don't know what turnout is for the other people. But once you have it during working hours, you know there are low turnout more than likely. I sure tomorrow they will have people there because they want to make sure they have people there. But my concern with the session tomorrow that for employers and employees to make you know your rights as workers and employers. But my concern is they call a session and they hag it up for like most of the session that they want to have. And then when the people really want to have reasoning, then they will have limited time for reasoning. So I just alert them right now. I want to make nice at the beginning of the session, if you don't think we want to have up the time, and then we leave it at time for reasons. And then I have to hold, the Medical Media House last week in the morning, they had Labour, they had representative, the president of the NTUC even there, and they had representative from the British Chamber of Commerce, because I guess NTUC is supposed to represent workers, and then the Chamber of Commerce is supposed to represent employers. And I just say, with all them talking more, at no point, nobody ever talked about severance. No, that's not a hot topic right now. So the fact that you still, and I talk Labour, Union, Chamber, nobody bring up severance. So I don't no side come tomorrow for holding on accountable. That how could a moment like this when you have former employees of BTL and DEL, because of the severance is a statutory, legally employers owe it to employees, and until a pay it is owed forever. And that the Labor Department have the responsibility for when the employer don't want to pay you to respond urgently. There's no, like you, right now, only might want to talk about us. We want to talk about severance. And the avoidance of it is just baffling to me most, even on Labor Day. Like, the union has made it clear, I done it then. They make it clear, they represent union workers. They're not business about the other Belizean workers. Straight up. I left on alone, but I don't want to stop saying, betray workers. Shouldn't sing solidarity forever. I don't want to move off of that, but no problem. We Belizeans have to learn. That's why I'm telling the Belizeans, I don't care who, 9 to 11:30 tomorrow morning, the IT vet. Labour, they have Labour education sessions, and they have it all over the country, but now only the one-time stop, that tomorrow, come out, ask questions. Most I never know that as much as 16,000 to 20,000 Belizean workers work for call centers, and they're not unionized ones. Like, who really look out for workers? We have to look out for ourselves more. We have to start to study together and stop the dependence on union leaders and attorneys for talk for we. They're basic things that we should learn. And if we don't learn it, again, nobody knows how to look after we interests like we as workers. And to have you, once you get workers knowledgeable more and organized outside a union, I feel strongly that one game changer, I believe. Because if workers organize and understand the power and the strength that we have, once we say, okay, based on the law, these are our rights, and we say lock it down, then can't have no economy, then can't have no business.
Couple of things I know that I have to go to break, but just a couple of things to put and weigh in on that. The USH fight, it's been a fight. There was all-inclusive fight, and the USH, you really and truly to deal with one bunch of, yes, cover everything and when they talk about, but we have people with it dead because of the absence of USH. I think it's important for you to understand how critical USH is and how hard it has been to move USH from paper to what there right now, and that
I don't even know what I mean with the OSH.
That the occupational safety and hazard legislation where essentially one make it a legal requirement for certain things to be put in place to ensure that workers are safe. So for example, when a construction worker falls down and dies and didn't have on a harness, didn't have on a helmet, because the contractor or the developer decides, I don't want to pay the extra money for that, and because people have to live and they have to pay their bills, they decide, I have to do what I have to do, and there is no legal recourse to make sure, or the worker for do garbage collection, to make sure that they have gloves, to make sure that they have the requirements to protect themselves. If you see any of that, sister, so I could go on and on in the different professions where this an impact, and in many instances these are people we not they in our union, but the OSH ultimately, once it's passed, it's going to provide them with a certain protection. Obviously, for any employer, including ourselves, it's going to impact the bottom line, because it is going to result in an increase in a way you have to spend. But my goodness, it is an increase for protect people. When they talk about protecting life, you can go back in the news and see the instances where people have died because we have not been able to resolve and pass this legislation. It is, yes, I understand there needs to be, we need to make sure that everything is proper, we need to make sure that everybody input, all of that was required. But right now it's very disturbing to me that we're still above. And so I don't want you to not see that for what it really is. That is critical legislation, sister. And the second thing I want to put forward is that, again, the composition of the Labor Complaints Tribunal and the composition of the Essential Service Tribunal is extremely important. And it is oppressive to create the illusion that you are that you have a body that you can go to arbitrate, and that this is going to be a place of equal rights and justice. This is not to be a personal attack on individuals who are chosen to serve on these entities. This is not to say that people are not capable of being more than the mechanism that put them in a place. And let me unpack that before I go to break. As it's presently constituted, you have various people who are going to be placed on these tribunals, and they will weigh in and decide serious matters. The Labor Complaints Tribunal is the one that had the last word on the 36 workers at PBL. The ESAT is the one that's going to make the final decision on essential services like stevedoring and a bunch of other government-related bodies that are essential services. The problem is that these tribunals will, as it is designed right now, always have a government majority. That, in my view, cannot be. It cannot be, because we have no track record to show that at this level entities are able to divorce themselves from the political directorate. we have the most recent occurrence where the ombudsman and the ombudsman office broke that pattern and chose to side on what was right. And nobody cannot tell the Belizean people that that did not result in the fact that his contract was not renewed. So we cannot, again, this is not to discredit the persons individually who go into these things, but the mechanism cannot deliver what it's supposed to deliver if it is you're dealing with a decision, as the case of the severance. It cannot deliver because it is compromised in the way it is rigged. It is rigged. These are pressing things. This is not to minimize the fight. You know where I stand with the workers at BTL, with the severance, and where I stand with BTL retired workers, BEL retired workers. But we need to have a consciousness that you'll say one wide lens everything. Everything. Is it?
Respect. Quick question before I go, and I'm done with it. The CEO of Transport will ever come by your show?
You give him a call and say when you come, man. I gotta go.
Oh, so that's for me. The man over here for me. Stop answer my text. The minister stop answer my text and was answer it, but they stop answer my text. So
I will call the brother and see if he's going to reschedule.
All right, me not ask about that.
I don't know, especially now the man in the news again, and I don't know, then they call the man Kim Kardashian and all of that.
You see? All right, me done.
That was very unkind, man. They
But more, you yourself said it last time, and that's true. You said one of the conversations we had that when he was commissioner of police, he was on the news consistently. And I just said that because we're not used to people where get paid for communicating with we consistently. We're not used to sit and do it and get paid for do. So especially one and that for it, as we're not used to see. And the man did the part TV like so. It's somebody.
No, I have said to CEO Chester right here to his face. You love the camera, you love the mic. That I don't know, but then I would have never called a man no Kim Kardashian. That like that.
But you have to understand the person related to
I think that was harsh, man. That was harsh.
Look. But I don't know what the Afro camera space I don't want to come. I don't know what the guy.
That is not very Kim Kardashian like. Sister, I gotta go to 2 cents camp. Respect.
I'm organize and say to people.